This is the Surface Duo. It's an interesting double-screened phone that is Microsoft's first foray into the Android phone world. I'm intrigued. Let's check it out. Hello, my name is Brad. I review tech for creative professionals, and today I'm reviewing this. This is the Surface Duo, and it works with the Surface Pen, which is why I'm taking a look at it. So I really wanted to love this thing, but it's probably the buggiest piece of tech I've ever reviewed. I try not to watch other reviews or read other reviews while I'm working on my own because I don't want to be swayed one way or the other. I just want to formulate my own opinion. But I see things on Twitter, I see the headlines, I see YouTube thumbnails like these, and I have to say I was pretty relieved. I was a little bit worried that maybe I was doing something wrong or I got a bad unit. Some of the bugs I came across were glitchy, some of them were freezy, some of the bugs caused things not to work the way they should, and some bugs weren't bugs at all. It was just software that had no idea what to do with the two screens. Looking at you, Facebook chat bubbles. But even with this incredibly buggy software, I think Microsoft has created something special here. We're gonna get this out of the way first. If you're looking for screaming specs, look elsewhere. This phone is rocking last year's Snapdragon 855 processor, so maybe rocking is the wrong word here. It's not the newest and best processor you're gonna find on an Android phone, but it's fine. Inside, you're gonna get 6 gigabytes of RAM, an 11 megapixel camera that is both your selfie camera and your camera if you flip the phone around. I'm not gonna dwell on this too much, but if you love the camera on your phone and taking photographs with your phone, this might not be the one that you're looking for. It's kind of like taking the selfie camera on most phones and turning it into the primary camera on your main phone. As far as storage goes, you can get this with 128 gigs or 256 gigs. But enough about numbers and that sort of thing. The hero of the hardware here is that hinge. When you pair it with the super duper thin sides and the glass backs, this thing looks glorious. Moving this around in your hands and bending it, it is an engineering wonder. And I have always said, the software thing doesn't pan out for Microsoft could always become like a hinge company. Who is that guy? I have not aged well, but that sentiment has. It's like Microsoft has some mad genius on site who's only known for designing hinges. Wait until the world sees this one! Actually, that might be what's going on there. Just as you're admiring the super slim design, you get to the screens. The screens themselves are okay. They look good. Each screen is 5.6 inches across, each with a resolution of 1800 pixels by 1350 pixels. If it's fully opened up, you get 2700 pixels by 1800 pixels. I thought the bezels along the top and the bottom would have bothered me a lot more than they actually do, but in real life, while using this, they were fine. You also get these bumpers in the box. I don't like them. They take an elegant design and dramatically bulk it up. It feels like an afterthought, like they designed this cool piece of hardware and then someone said, guys, we need to protect this crazy expensive phone we're building. When it's closed, it looks like the world's coolest Nintendo DS. And if you know which apps to download, you could turn it into a Nintendo DS. It also makes a pretty good Microsoft Xbox. The UI here is cool. It's a little bit buggy at times, but visually, I love the skin that Microsoft has put on here. This really feels like a different OS. Obviously, it's Android, so you still have access to all of the things that Android does well. But there's a lot of little touches, like the animations and when the icons slide back in, how the panels are sliding in and out. And it might be because I'm coming from the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra with its 120 Hz display, but the UI just doesn't feel nearly as snappy as I want it to. There have been several times where I can see the phone thinking. Now, I think a lot of people are going to credit this to a year-old processor, yet I had been using last year's Galaxy phone with the same processor up until a few weeks ago, and that thing ran fine. I think this software needs more time to bake. It could definitely be better optimized. And Microsoft has said that they do plan on rolling out more updates over time. Microsoft has really embraced the two-screen dynamic. I say this all the time here, but good design takes a weakness or a limitation and plays it off as a strength. The weakness of having two screens is that you have a physical line between the things that you're doing. It's not great if you want to read something across a wider screen or watch a video. But I think this is a great example of leaning into your strength. This dual screen design has allowed Microsoft to make it really thin, crazy thin in fact. And when you're using Microsoft software or software optimized for it, it's rarely used as a single screen device. Now, phones have allowed you to multitask for years, but it's never really felt like true multitasking. Here, now, on the Duo, it feels like legit multitasking. Each screen almost acts like its own independent phone, but it's pretty easy to just take your app from one phone and drag it to the other screen. Some apps will allow you to span, which basically means the app can span the width of both screens. Of course, this requires the app to be designed to do this, and most apps have not, at least not yet. And because of the adjustments that apps have to make to really take advantage of this two screens, the experience you're gonna have has a lot to do with what apps you lean most heavily on. For example, if you're deep heads down into Microsoft's Office suite, you're probably going to love this thing a lot more than, say, someone like me who's using drawing apps. Microsoft also lets you group apps together and launch them at the same time. So say you want to sketch something out and you have your photo references open and you're always using both apps at the same time, group them together, launch them at the same time. It may not seem like a big deal when you're hearing it now, but when you actually start to use the phone, you'll soon discover that just setting up all your apps and getting everything positioned the way you want it takes a bit of time. So being able to just do that automatically is kind of cool. When I first got the phone and I wasn't using it, I would close it like a Nintendo DS because that's what you do, right? The downside of that is I couldn't see any of my notifications, emails, texts, the things that are popping in that maybe I don't really want to pay attention to right now, but it's nice to have off to the side. I thought this was one area where the phone's design actually kind of came in handy. I could prop it open so I only saw one of the screens and set it up right so I could just glance over instead of actually having to pick up the phone. On to the fun part. Let's talk about drawing on this thing. You can use the standard Surface Pen or the flat pen that was designed for last year's Surface Pro X. In fact, you can use any Surface Pen that's ever been made to draw on this device. This is the first Android device I've seen that works with the Surface Pen. Over the years, I have had my issues with the Surface Pen. There's just too much wobble and jitter. I just don't enjoy drawing with it. And unfortunately, that carries over here to Android as well. This is the same exact pen experience we've seen on Windows. If you're taking notes, it's fine. But for exact and precise lines, I had to crank up the streamlining on my brushes to compensate for that. And of course, that is going to give you more pen lag and more inaccuracies when ending lines. Now, the faster you draw your lines, the less wobble you're going to get. But my biggest problem here is what I would consider a normal drawing speed, at least for me. Well, you can see it here. This is the problem that I'm dealing with. But those critiques are for finished artwork. When I actually stopped and think about how I draw on my phone, like the Galaxy Note phone that I've been using for a while, I'm not sitting down and creating finished pieces of art on the phone. What I'm doing is I'm sketching while I'm out and about, or I'm sitting on the couch. I'm using it for a few minutes at a time, not a few hours at a time. And for that sort of thing, the pen is more than capable. The screen size is good shape and a good size for drawing. One thing that I was running into was that if you get anywhere near the edge of the screen with the pen tip, it might accidentally activate or move it or span it to two screens. Basically, the gesture control kicks in and does some funky stuff. That's something that's part of the learning curve that you do got to get used to if you're planning on drawing on this phone. What about the apps? Well, I tried out several. My favorite, Clip Studio, currently only available on Samsung devices, so that was a no-go. But there are some good ones out there. Concepts, Infinite Painter, iBez Paint X. The only app that didn't work for me that I enjoy using on a regular basis was Artflow. The problem there had to do with where the interface was located. You have to tap this little dot in the corner in order to open up the interface. If you hold on that dot, it pins the interface so it doesn't disappear when you're drawing. Microsoft's interface is sitting on top of that, so it was very hard to hit that if you can hit it or pin it at all. Another drawback that I came across on a lot of different apps is in order to close these apps, you have to swipe up from the bottom of the phone. Well, if you're in an art app, what happens when you swipe up from the bottom of the phone? It leaves a line, so that's a little annoying too. None of these apps are designed to work on two-screen devices, but they can all be spanned across the two screens. Obviously, that big gap in the middle could be a problem if you're working on a big composition. You're not going to want to draw across that. You physically cannot draw across that. It's interesting how Microsoft has implemented it. It's not like where one screen ends, the next screen begins. Instead, it just takes that space in between the screens and it just doesn't show those pixels. As I was getting used to the phone, trying different things out, one thing that I did come across that I liked is coming up with a bigger canvas, spanning it across both screens, and then sketching on one side and then copying and pasting those sketches over and doing more polish work on the other screen. I thought that was kind of a cool way to work. The most obvious way to work is to put up some kind of photo reference or maybe even a YouTube video or a podcast that you're listening to on one screen and then drawing on the other screen. That's pretty cool. But overall, I felt like on this device, drawing is a little bit of a mixed bag. Who is this for? Not me, and probably not you. Trying to wrap my head around this question reminds me of reviewing the Surface Book a few months back. Surface Book. Crazy cool. It's a tablet that detaches from the keyboard, but if you look at it from a price to spec ratio, it's really not a good deal. But there are some consumers out there who are going to look at that form factor and think, oh, I know exactly how I would use that. I really want that thing now. And if you're one of those people, the Surface Book is a fantastic device. I feel like the Surface Duo falls into that same category. If you look at just the specs that you're getting for that price, it's not a great value. But if you're the type of person who looks at it and thinks, wow, I've wanted a 2-screen phone, and you get it and understand it and see the value of that, then it's the perfect device for you. And the question that nobody can really answer is, how many people like that are out there? This isn't for designers or illustrators, and in many ways this feels like the ultimate office productivity phone because it's Microsoft's apps that are taking advantage of those 2 screens. Over the years, my phone has really integrated its way into how I live my life, and I know I'm not alone in that. But with the Duo, I feel like I have to change up my life a little bit to fit the phone. For example, a lot of mornings. Go for a run. This is too wide to hold in my sweaty hands while I'm jogging around, and I'm really afraid I'm going to break the thing. My phone is also a really important camera to me. Many of the product shots and the thumbnails that you see here on YouTube, those photos are taken on my phone. I don't really feel like I could do that here. Also, I've gotten really spoiled with wireless charging, and on this phone, it's just not there. But then there's the tech enthusiast in me who loves this phone for what it represents. The desire to push forward, try something different when most phones are just giant slabs of glass. Overall, I have to say kudos to Microsoft for trying this. I am glad that they did. At this price, right now, I would not recommend this. I would definitely say wait for version 2, especially if you're a designer or an illustrator. It's not there yet. There's potential, and you can see that potential, and that potential is exciting. So what do you think? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.